Some people say sorry before the other person even finishes one sentence, and that fast apology usually begins long before the current argument ever started. It can look kind, mature, and calm on the surface, but very often it is a fear response hiding inside good manners. The person is not only fixing the moment, they are trying to stop rejection, anger, distance, or punishment before it has time to grow. That is why this habit can damage self-worth even while it makes relationships look peaceful from the outside. Today we are breaking down why some people always apologize first, where the pattern starts, and what it slowly costs them over time. A healthy apology is simple: I hurt you, I see it, and I want to repair it. But chronic apologizing works very differently. The chronic version often shows up before the facts are clear, before blame is known, and sometimes while the apologizer was the one who got hurt. That means the apology is not just about responsibility, it is doing another job, and that job is lowering emotional danger fast. Think of it like pulling a fire alarm before checking if there is smoke, because the body has learned that tension itself feels unsafe. The first big root is people-pleasing, and people-pleasing is much deeper than being polite or trying to be nice. In many people, people-pleasing is a safety strategy, a way to keep approval, keep belonging, and keep the room from turning cold. If a child learned that conflict brought yelling, criticism, silent treatment, or sudden withdrawal, taking blame could start to feel like protection. That child grows up and the nervous system remembers the old lesson: peace first, truth later, and sometimes truth never. So in adulthood, the person says sorry quickly, not because they studied the evidence, but because speed feels safer than honesty. This is why first apologizers often sound moral, even when fear is actually running the show behind the polite words. They may apologize for asking a simple question, needing help, being sad, correcting a mistake, or wanting a normal boundary respected. That pattern tells us something important. The apology is no longer tied only to wrong actions, it is tied to existing comfortably at all. The next root is conflict avoidance, and this does not just mean disliking arguments or wanting quiet in the house. For many habitual apologizers, conflict feels like a doorway to rejection, abandonment, humiliation, or punishment, not just a hard conversation. That is why they often apologize before they explain themselves, because the body is trying to save the relationship before the mind catches up. The inner message sounds like this: if I shrink first, maybe you will not leave, explode, or stop loving me. When a person lives with that message for years, saying sorry becomes automatic, almost like a reflex instead of a chosen response. Childhood conditioning is often the deepest layer, especially in homes where love felt conditional instead of steady and secure. Some children become the easy child, the peacemaker, the fixer, or the emotional shock absorber because the family rewards those roles. If a parent was volatile, depressed, highly critical, emotionally immature, or hard to predict, the child might watch every tone shift closely. That constant scanning is called hypervigilance, and over-apologizing can grow straight out of that watchfulness and fear. The child learns to sense danger early and soften themselves fast, hoping the storm never reaches full size. Years later, the adult may still apologize in normal situations, even when no real danger exists, because the old map never got updated. Attachment style also helps explain this pattern, especially anxious attachment and trauma-shaped attachment. A person with anxious attachment often fears distance in relationships and may work overtime to keep closeness alive. In that state, an apology can become a request for reassurance, almost saying, please do not disconnect from me. People with disorganized attachment can struggle even more because closeness and threat get tangled together in the same relationship system. They want connection, but they also expect pain inside connection, so self-blame feels like a strange kind of stabilizer. Another hidden root is shame, and shame is different from ordinary guilt in a very important way. Guilt says I did something bad, but shame says something bad is built into me, and that changes everything. A shame-based person may apologize for taking up space, being emotional, asking twice, speaking too loudly, or needing anything at all. That is why some people say sorry when they are early, sorry when they are late, and sorry when they are simply present. The word stops meaning I made a mistake and starts meaning please forgive me for existing in your line of sight. That is a painful place to live, because self-worth gets tied to how little trouble you cause other people. There is also a powerful habit loop here, because apologizing first often works in the short term. It can lower tension, soften the other person, end an argument faster, and prevent a feared breakup or emotional explosion. That quick relief teaches the nervous system the same lesson again. Sorry equals safety, so the behavior gets repeated even more. Short-term relief can feel like success, but long-term it slowly empties out confidence, clarity, and honest self-expression. One long-term cost is that the person starts doubting their own perception because they keep overriding it in real time. If you say sorry before checking what happened, you never fully practice trusting your own reading of the situation. Another cost is that other people can get used to your fast apology and stop looking at their own behavior. In unhealthy relationships, this makes the chronic apologizer easy to blame because they walk into the blame before anyone else can. That is how people-pleasing can attract controlling or emotionally immature partners who enjoy never being examined too closely. The pattern also pushes anger underground, and buried anger rarely disappears. It usually turns into anxiety, resentment, or low mood. From the outside, the person looks calm, but inside they may feel unseen because their job is to repair the atmosphere, not represent themselves. This creates a strange kind of false peace, because the relationship looks smooth while the truth keeps getting traded away. If one person always folds first, the real issue often never gets explored, and the other person never has to own their part. That means over-apologizing can actually block intimacy, because intimacy needs truth, not just a quiet room. There is another problem most people miss. Compulsive apologizing can make real apologies weaker and more confusing. If sorry gets used for everything, it stops clearly signaling accountability and starts sounding like padding, panic, or appeasement. Friends, partners, and coworkers may not know when the apology means "I was wrong" and when it means "please do not be upset." Culture and social rules matter too, because in some places people use sorry as a softener instead of a full admission of guilt. A person might say sorry while passing by, interrupting, correcting, or asking for space because the setting rewards politeness and deference. That is not automatically a mental health problem, so we have to separate social style from compulsive fear-based apologizing. The red flags show up when the apology is constant, identity level, and disconnected from actual fault. One sign is apologizing before hearing the full issue, because that shows the goal is speed, not understanding. Another sign is apologizing while being mistreated, because the person is managing the abuser's feelings instead of protecting themselves. Another sign is feeling panic the moment someone looks disappointed, annoyed, or slightly distant, even if nothing serious has happened. Many chronic apologizers also confuse disagreement with rejection, and that confusion keeps them from handling normal adult conflict well. They may need immediate reassurance after saying sorry because the apology was really a bid for emotional safety. In work life, this pattern causes its own set of problems, even when the person is smart, kind, and highly capable. They may undersell ideas, over-explain simple points, volunteer for blame, and sound unsure even when their work is strong. Excessive apology language can quietly lower how much authority other people think they have, especially in meetings and leadership settings. It can also push them into invisible labor roles, smoothing tension, repairing misunderstandings, and protecting other people's comfort without recognition. Over time, that hurts advancement because the person becomes known as emotionally useful instead of strategically valuable. The hardest part is that many first apologizers think they are being good, mature, or extra considerate when they are actually self-abandoning. They learn to regulate another person's reaction before they learn to stand beside their own truth. That sentence explains the whole pattern. The body says keep them calm first, even if your own experience gets erased. A secure person can still apologize quickly, but the secure apology comes after knowing what happened and owning a real part. The fear-based apology comes before truth, before context, and sometimes before the other person has even spoken clearly. That difference is small in one moment, but huge across a lifetime of relationships, work, and identity. If you know someone who always says sorry first, the habit may not be softness, it may be old survival wrapped in polite language. If you are that person, the goal is not to become cold or rude. The goal is to separate kindness from self-erasure. A good first step is pausing long enough to ask one question: what exactly am I apologizing for right now? That pause interrupts the reflex and gives the mind a chance to catch up with the nervous system. Another strong question is whether the other person is upset because you caused harm or because they dislike boundaries, honesty, or discomfort. That matters because saying sorry to real harm builds trust, but saying sorry to someone else's control only feeds the cycle. The healthiest relationships can survive a pause, a question, and a clear sentence that does not begin with immediate self-blame. And the healthiest self-worth grows when you learn that belonging should not require you to keep shrinking every time tension appears. So when a person always apologizes first, the deepest story is usually not manners. It is fear, shame, conditioning, and the search for safety. The habit may protect the relationship on the surface, but underneath it can quietly teach the person they must earn permission to exist. That belief affects friendships too, because the chronic apologizer often becomes the one who smooths every awkward moment and carries every emotional mess. They may apologize for choosing the restaurant, for sharing a problem, or for asking a friend to show up on time. When that keeps happening, friendship can turn one-sided, with one person always adjusting, and the other person barely noticing the extra effort. Romantic relationships often show the pattern even more clearly because closeness activates the deepest fear of being too much and then being left. A partner's normal frustration can feel huge to the habitual apologizer, so they rush to self-blame before the conversation even has a shape. That rush can hide important facts like whether the partner was unfair, dismissive, manipulative, or simply unwilling to hear another point of view. Family relationships can keep the pattern alive for decades, especially when the old family role still expects one person to keep peace at any cost. A grown adult can return home for one dinner and suddenly start apologizing with the same speed they used as a child. That is another clue that the behavior is old conditioning, because the body remembers the original classroom where the lesson got installed. Healing usually starts when the person notices that tension is uncomfortable, but discomfort alone is not proof of danger or proof of guilt. That new lesson sounds simple, but for someone shaped by fear, learning it can change every future argument, boundary, and close relationship. Another hidden cost appears in language itself, because constant sorry words can train the speaker to sound small even when the facts are on their side. The person may say sorry before presenting an idea, sorry before disagreeing, and sorry before asking for fair treatment that should not need an apology. Over time, those tiny habits teach the brain the same old lesson again: your needs are a burden and your voice must arrive softened. That is why the pattern reaches beyond conflict and starts shaping identity, confidence, and even the size of the life a person thinks they deserve. A child who learns safety through self-erasure often becomes an adult who confuses being easy to handle with being lovable. That confusion can make healthy relationships feel strange at first, because healthy people do not need you to apologize for every feeling, preference, or limit. They can tolerate pauses, hard talks, and moments where you explain yourself without kneeling emotionally first. Learning that difference takes practice, but it begins with noticing that immediate guilt is not always proof that you did something wrong. Sometimes immediate guilt is just an old alarm system reacting to a normal human moment. And once a person learns that difference, sorry can return to its proper job, real repair instead of automatic self-protection. If this video helped you see that pattern more clearly, subscribe and watch the next psychology breakdown, because small habits in conflict often reveal the whole hidden self.